Hello, this is State Senator Dale Ryder. Today is Thursday, May 7th, and I'm speaking to you again today from my office in the Illinois State Capitol. This is the last day of this particular session week, and we're here talking about issues ranging from the budget to campaign ethics to finance reform and a number of other issues. But I think the issue that has come out here in the last few days that is particularly important to you and me and everyone else who lives in this state has to do with the recommendations of Governor Quinn's Illinois Reform Commission. That report, which was released on April 28th, has a number of recommendations about how Illinois government can operate more efficiently, more cost-effectively for the taxpayers, and better serve all Illinoisans. I want to talk about two recommendations in particular that I think are particularly important. One is a proposal to change the way we fund campaigns here in Illinois. More specifically, this recommendation would require that campaign caps or contribution caps be put in place. Now, the Reform Commission has recommended a cap of $2,400 per year, and we can debate about exactly how much money that cap should be at. Should it be $2,400 or $5,000 or $10,000? But I think that the report and that recommendation in particular should signal a serious start of a debate about how are we going to find a way to lessen the amount of money that is spent in today's campaigns. I favor caps on contributions. I favor contribution limits because I think that that will be a good first start in trying to figure out how we see less money come into politics, because the more money that is injected into these campaigns, particularly by special interests, the less influence day-to-day working hard citizens have in what goes on in Springfield and, for that matter, in Washington. The second issue that I want to touch on has to do with the way Illinois draws its legislative boundaries. As you may be aware, Illinois is the only state in the country that in the end has democracy by lottery. If the political parties and the governor cannot agree to a legislative map or legislative boundaries by a certain time frame in the year after the census is completed, then in Illinois we literally draw a name out of a hat. And whoever's name gets picked, their party gets to decide, without input from the other party at all, how legislative boundaries will be drawn. That's the wrong way to do it. We can do better for all Illinois citizens, regardless of whether they consider themselves Republicans, Democrats, or a member of neither one of those parties. The Reform Commission has come out and said, let's create a system that abides by the 1965 Voter Rights Act and other provisions of federal law, does not take into account incumbency, does not take into account political affiliation, respects local boundaries like townships and counties and municipalities, requires a supermajority bipartisan vote of the General Assembly, and would require a supermajority vote of the courts in order to overturn that map. In other words, let's bring citizens in to the process, and let's have less regard for incumbents who are already serving in the General Assembly. That should be the last of our considerations: who's a Republican and who's a Democrat, who's in office and who is not. We can do a better job of drawing legislative boundaries in Illinois, and we can do that by passing the Illinois Reform Commission's recommendations. That's what I am for. You can review those recommendations, both the full report and the executive summary, here on my website, and I'll hope you'll take the opportunity to do so. Give me your feedback and let me know, as always, what you think. Thank you again for joining me and for visiting our website.